Do you like board games that feature awesome card play, deduction, and deep, complex choices? Well, strap on a helmet, grab a sword, and keep watching this video. Hey man, thanks for coming tonight. Have you got everything? Oh yeah, my bag. See ya. Alright, see you next week. Hey folks, Danny from Board Game Sanctuary here. Today we're going to be looking at an awesome strategy card-driven board game called Hidden Leaders, where players secretly control a hidden leader aligned to 2 out of 4 different factions, all vying for control over the kingdom. The player who can build the biggest army and also satisfy their faction's win condition will win the game. It is important to note that all of the components that you see here in this video are still in their prototype format.
The game Hidden Leaders features 4 distinct factions: the Green Hill Tribe, the Red Imperial Army, the Blue Water People, and the Black Undead. These tribes are indicated by the colours of this board, with the graveyard on the right and the Imperial and Hill tribes represented by these jagged wooden markers. The tribes are portrayed throughout the deck of hero cards as indicated by the symbols and coloured backgrounds. So the story is, the Emperor of Oshra has befallen and now the kingdom is at war. Hill tribe people who are connected with the land are now at all-out war with the Imperial Red Army. The aquatic people fight to balance on both sides, whilst the Black Undead are all about complete and total destruction. The Emperor's 6 children are now attempting to rally support from their associated factions in order to compete for the Emperor's throne. Throughout the game, the strength of the influence of each faction is determined by the position of these 2 markers on this track.
At the start of the game, each player will randomly draw a hidden leader card. Hang on a sec while I craft them. Each hidden leader is aligned to 2 of the 4 factions featured throughout the game. Their ultimate goal is to build an army that is composed of the largest number of heroes aligned with their faction colour by the time the end of the game is triggered. There is one challenge, however. Only 1 of the 4 factions can claim victory by the end of the game, and players must have the largest number of heroes in that faction colour, and it also must match the faction alignment that their hidden leader possesses.
To win a game, each faction has a different set of win conditions that are determined at the end of the game, which is triggered when a player places a specified number of face-up heroes according to the player count. The Undead faction wins if both the red and green markers are in the dark wall spaces at the end of the game. The Water faction wins if the red and green markers are either next to each other or on the same space. The Empire faction wins if the red marker is at least 2 steps ahead of the green marker. The Hill Tribes faction wins if the green marker is at least 2 steps ahead of the red marker. There are 4 distinct zones on the game board. The graveyard is where the deceased emperor currently resides, and also where other characters go that are killed. The harbour is the main deck of cards where players will draw cards from round to round. The tavern is like a mini 18th century market where you can recruit new personnel, whilst the wilderness is where cards are placed if they are discarded from your hand. These zones are pretty important in the game, as cards placed in the graveyard and wilderness can be manipulated and retrieved using hero card abilities throughout the game. Players are essentially going to be playing a combination of face-up and face-down heroes into the area in front of them, which forms their Hidden Leaders army. Each hero card usually has a red or green symbol on it, indicating which marker will move in a particular direction. This represents the political struggle between the factions.
Playing a game of Hidden Leaders is relatively simple. On a player's turn, they'll choose one of the 3 cards from their hand, they'll play the card face up into their party, triggering the action listed at the bottom of the card and resolving its effect. Then, players are going to choose to draw cards into their hand until they have 4 from either the Tavern row or the Harbour deck, before discarding one of the cards from their hand into the Wilderness area, and then passing the turn to the next player.
For example, if these are the 3 cards that are in my hand, I've got a Joyless Chief, Flailing Knight, and Short-Sighted Soldier, I can look at the abilities and think about how they're going to manipulate the 2 markers on the main game map. And because my hidden leader is aligned with the red and blue faction, I can look for the ability that best serves me well. So here, this particular red short-sighted soldier will hopefully allow me to equalize the markers on the track, meaning that even if red doesn't win, I can still win with blue. So I'm going to play this card, Short-Sighted Soldier, and place it here. And because I've got 7 face-up hero cards, that triggers the end of the game for a 3 or 4 player game. According to this endgame board state, it appears that the Blue Water Tribe have won the game. And because my hidden leaders align with the Blue Water Tribe, I can vie for ultimate victory for the game. I've got 3 blue heroes here, and in my face down pile, got an additional 3 blue creatures as well, giving me 6 blue hero creatures altogether. I would need to compare that with any other player who's controlling a leader aligned with the blue faction, and this determines the ultimate winner of the game.
The hero cards that are played throughout the game are ultimately going to enable players to manipulate the position of the 2 markers on this main game board track. Players are ultimately playing cards to usher these markers into a position that satisfies one of the 4 factions' victory conditions, and they're trying to do so it matches one of the 2 factions that are listed on their Hidden Leaders card. The really ingenious part of the challenge here is that because each player has a hidden leader aligned to 2 different factions which may or may not overlap, these markers are going to be shifting up and down the board constantly throughout the game, affecting the choices that you make as well as your pathway to victory.
The Red Imperial Empire Army cards are generally focused on moving the red marker towards the positive end and moving the green hill marker backwards. The Green Hill Tribe cards are the opposite and focuses on moving the red marker backwards and the green marker forwards. Both factions have abilities that help to flip heroes face up, face down, or even send them to the graveyard. The Blue Water faction cards are quite balanced as they help players move both markers towards the harbour, as well as providing players with the ability to take cards from the Wilderness, Tavern, and hand and place them into their party. The Undead faction are all about conflict and are about moving both markers into the Dark Zone.
So is Hidden Leaders a game worth investigating and fighting for? Well, the aspect of the game that really captures my attention is the constant interplay of cards and how they work together. I like how every action and choice that you make in this game is going to really affect the game board state as well as the subsequent turns and actions that the other players are going to make. The shared marker track kind of forms this political round table that focuses all the players' interactions and choices into one place, meaning that you feel like you're standing around a war table deciding what tactics you're going to play and how you're going to play them through, although you're doing it at a much simpler and more engaging level. It's really important in this game that you decide what to do, and every decision that you make is going to have a consequence throughout how you're going to reach your end goal in this game. This game is a tug of war of choices that causes ripples and waves that are going to emanate throughout every round that you play.
The abilities of the cards allows players to manipulate the progress and state of the game. Cards that flip heroes face down will slow the end game. Cards that destroy other heroes sends them to the graveyard to be retrieved later on. The Emperor card is powerful as it acts as all 4 factions and can be used when determining the winner at the end of the game. The combo and synergy between the cards makes each card play feel impactful.
There are really awesome cards in this game that have some really cool abilities. For example, this Clamped Creel card allows you to move the red marker and green marker back, and you get to choose a player where X is the number of face-up
undead cards in that player's party. Other player is clearly vying for the undead. You can exploit that by using this card to move the markers back away from the dark zone. Sunshine Skeleton helps you to play cards that are played from the top of the graveyard. So any killed cards usually go into this graveyard section here where the deceased emperor is. And using this card allows you to re-trigger some of the actions of cards that have previously been killed off. It's quite evident that the game does feature some really cool card combos and card synergies that really help you to interact with the other players and also move the markers across this game board.
So you might be wondering how strong the deduction elements are in a game of Hidden Leaders. Well, the deduction aspects of the game do shine through quite strongly. Because each Hidden Leader is aligned to two different factions, players are constantly scoping and looking at how players make their decisions, because part of the information in the game is face up and part of the information is face down in the game. The choices that players make face up really indicate to the rest of the players what factions that player might be vying for. So if a player picks the red card from the tavern area, then maybe that player might be trying to get the Red Empire faction to win. Now, because each hero has two faction alignments, players can kind of swing between either of them, which means there's a little bit of flexibility for deceiving the other players. Players might be going for the Green Hill tribe, but then end up trying to claim victory for the Undead tribe as featured on this card. Players are also scrutinizing the face-up hero cards that players play into their party. If one player plays a lot of blue cards, then that player is obviously trying to secure a blue victory, or one of their faction alignments might be with the blue water people.
The face-down hero cards are a super important part of the deduction element in the game. You don't really know how many heroes of each colour a player has stored there. These face-down cards are important for determining a winner if two players have aligned with the winning faction. This hidden element creates further tension and suspense throughout the game.
There are some points to consider if you're thinking about getting Hidden Leaders for your board game collection. First of all, when you can see that the game is about to end and one player has the required number of face-up heroes, it can be really hard for the other players to try and swing the markers back in the direction that they want them. And this does vary from player count to player count. For example, if the markers are right up the dark end of the track where the undead look like they're going to win, then if you have a hidden leader that isn't aligned with that color, it's very hard to move those markers back into a position where you can secure victory, which can feel a little bit deflating sometimes. Second of all, the face-down hero cards only play a primary role when it comes to determining who wins a tie. So if a particular faction wins and you're aligned with that color and another player is aligned with that color, those face-down cards only serve a purpose in determining which of those two players ultimately win the game. So you could spend a lot of your time investing in face-down cards during your game, only to realize that by the end of the game that your faction hasn't won. So there's a little bit of a balancing effect when it comes to playing face-up and face-down cards, and that's one thing that you do really need to consider. So considering my final thoughts, Hidden Leaders is a superb strategy card game that definitely has a lot of heart. It is an easy game to teach, play, and it plays up to 6 players, meaning that it's a perfect game for any board game party night. It's very quick to play, and it's got a high level of interaction with a lot of political intrigue. You definitely feel like you're sitting around the king's table deciding who gets what. What really shines for me in the game are the card actions and card synergies, as well as how the 4 different factions interact with each other. Thank you once again for joining me for another Board Game Sanctuary video. If you really like this video, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe and share button, and share this video with all of your friendly mages and merfolk people. If you really like this channel, please don't forget to help Board Game Sanctuary grow and check out my Patreon page. If you really like the Hidden Leaders board game that we've featured in this video, don't forget to check out their Kickstarter, link in the description box below. This is Danny signing out. It's time to fight off and claim some victories. See you later. Goodbye.